Okay, welcome back to the YouTube channel. Hope you guys are doing well. So we're gonna be jumping in a little bit today around photo shoots, or essentially what it takes to get photo shoot lean. This is a process that I've been through myself. It's a process that I've put clients of mine through, and it's something that I do get conversations about or questions about in terms of what it actually takes to look like the people on Instagram, those fitfluencers that you follow, those people on the magazine covers. Like, what does it actually take to get as lean as those people? Now, it's important to say right from the off that you should not be comparing yourself to those people in the first place, because you don't know what they've been doing to get and to be able to maintain the shape that they are in. It's probably not what you think. And it's not as though they just look like that year round. And if they do look like that year round, you have to ask a realistic question of what are they doing to maintain that look. So one of the most common questions I get is, how hard is it to get that lean? The short answer is, it is hard. It takes a hell of a lot of work. It's not something that you just sort of go into half-heartedly. Like, you have to have a clear goal and a clear desire to do this process. Because if you want to get results like some of these guys up here that I've worked with, if you want to try and be the leanest that you've ever been, if you want to try and look the best that you've ever looked, it's going to require you to do a lot of things that potentially you've never done, or be consistent for an amount of time that potentially you've not been. It isn't an easy thing to do, but that shouldn't put you off. It shouldn't turn you away, because if the thought of something being difficult is putting you off doing it, you're probably never going to get that result in the first place. But before you do any of that, before you even think about how long it would take you to do, what you'd have to do to get there, you have to have a few of the basic things nailed. And I'm going to go through what those are, and I'm going to be talking through step by step what you should expect from the process, how you should approach the process, and how you could map things out to get to that end goal. But before we get into that, make sure you are comfy, because this is going to be a little bit of a longer episode. So if you haven't, pause the video, go get a cup of tea, grab a couple of biscuits, sit on the couch, get comfy. Whilst you've got the video paused, do not forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment below any thoughts that you've got about this, any questions that you have on this topic, all that jazz. It does massively help the channel out. So let's dive in. So like I said, before you even look at the process of doing one, before you even think about how long it's going to take you, what you're potentially going to have to do, what you do with your calories, your training, nutrition, all that sort of stuff, you need to actually know why you're doing it. And that needs to be a really solid reasoning, because I can guarantee you, if your reason for wanting to do a photo shoot is just to look like the guy on Instagram, it is not going to carry you through, because when it gets tough, and it should get tough, that is not going to be enough of an anchor for you, or enough of a driver for you to continue to stick to that plan. Trust me, it just isn't. So you need to know exactly why you're doing that. And it could just be that you're doing it for a challenge, right? A lot of people will do this for a challenge. They want to do something that they've never done before to get a result that they've never had before, right? Or it could be a milestone. You might be coming up to your 30th, 40th, 50th birthday, and you want to be in the best shape of your life for that occasion, so that you have these collection of photos that almost act as like a timestamp for you to be able to refer back to throughout the rest of your life, to be like, when I was 30 years old, 40 years old, 50 years old, I was in this shape, I achieved this. It might just be a case of you've never really been in what you would consider shape. You've never really had proper success with any form of training or nutrition program, and you finally want to do that. You finally want to achieve that result that you've always wanted. Reasons like that are a lot more meaningful than just wanting to look like X. So make sure you've got that nailed down. Make sure you've got that clear reasoning, because you're going to need it through the process. And there are tons of benefits of doing a photo shoot. Yes, you get into great shape. Yes, you get some really nice pictures that you can keep for the rest of your life. But genuinely, the biggest benefits that I've seen from both myself and from the guys that I've had doing it are the change in their confidence, right? How they feel about themselves, how they hold themselves, how they talk about themselves after doing a photo shoot is completely different to how they did when they first started this process. They literally walk a little taller, their shoulders are back, their chest is out, their head's up. You notice these differences in them because they've got a sense of achievement. And that's one of the other benefits you get, is this real sense of achievement. You've seen something through, you've done what you set out to do, you stuck to your word, and you've got a really good result out of it. You've achieved something not many people can do. And one of the other great benefits along with that is just pride. Pride in knowing that you've done a good job. Pride in knowing that you've achieved something, that you've stuck to your word, that you've had that discipline to see something like this through. They genuinely change how you approach work, how you approach social occasions, how you hold yourself, how you converse. They will change how you do that for the better. And because I've seen it happen, I've had it happen to myself, and I've seen it happen with my clients. So once you've got your why figured out, once you know exactly what the reasoning is as to why you want to do a photo shoot, why you want to take on that challenge. It could even be, for example, I've got a group photo shoot running this November, and for those guys involved in that, it's going to be a great opportunity for them to meet other guys going through the same process, wanting to achieve a similar goal, and they're going to make a whole new bunch of friends through that process that they're going to be able to celebrate with and enjoy it with on the day of the group shoot itself. So there's also a social side to it if you do a group photo shoot style thing. But once you've got all that nailed and you've got a good reason as to why, and that is stuck in your brain, you can then start looking at the process of, okay, how are we actually going to make this thing happen? How are we going to bring this photo shoot into fruition? And it's super, super important. There's some really, really clear things that you need to know right from the day one before you even start doing any prep work for it. You need to know exactly when you're going to do the photo shoot. So when is it going to be? Pick a date in the calendar. Be realistic with this, and we'll talk about this more in a second. But if you've got over the next few months, birthdays coming up, anniversaries coming up, weddings coming up, holidays coming up, it's probably not going to be the best time to try and do a photo shoot prep, because you're going to have too much that's going to get in the way of it, and you're probably not going to get the best result that you probably want. So wait until you've not necessarily got a clear run, because you're never going to have a clear run. There are always going to be things that come up, but maybe just pick out a time in the year where you don't have quite as much on, or it's maybe things that you could actually attend but not have to indulge in drinking, or you still have some good form of control over when you're there. So pick a date in the calendar, then decide where you're going to do it. Are you going to do it at your local gym? Are you going to do it at a private studio? Potentially, depending on the photographer that you choose, which is point number 3, they might know good private studios that they usually use. They might have a gym facility that they normally use. So you can sort of do these two things together. You could have somewhere in mind, or when you pick a photographer that you want to use, you could always ask them if they have any recommendations. It does mean you might have to travel for the shoot locations. I've traveled quite far for photo shoots for myself and for clients, because that is where the best location is, and that is where the photographer works out of. If that photographer is worth working with, which they should be, it's why you're inquiring with them, be willing and able to travel to where they want you to go on that day, because it will make a huge difference in the quality of the pictures that you end up getting on the day, which is what you want. You don't want to do all that work to then pick a facility or pick a gym that the photographer isn't happy with, that doesn't think will look the best in pictures. Go with their recommendation. Once you've got your date picked, once you've got your location sorted, once you've got your photographer picked, all you then need to do is work out how far away it is. How long are you going to give yourself? And this is super important, and this is a bit that potentially could go really wrong. Because this isn't going to be a 12-week thing unless you're already relatively lean, like unless you're already 12 to 15% body fat at most. Maybe then you could do it in 12 weeks, maybe, depending on how aggressive you diet. But for most of us, it's going to be much longer than that. So you need to be super realistic with how long you're going to give yourself to do this. And it could be 6 months, 9 months. You could be quite gradual in your approach. It doesn't have to be super aggressive out of the gate, but you need to be realistic here, because you don't want to set yourself up to fail and not give yourself enough time. So once you've got that date sorted, and a really good way of doing this can be figuring out what current body fat percentage you are at, the percentage of body fat you want to get to. So for most people, for a photo shoot, you're probably looking for guys at around 8 to 12% body fat. So you need to work out how far that is away from you in terms of percentage from where your starting point is. So let's say, for example, we have a 100 kilo individual and he's 20% body fat and he wants to do a photo shoot. He knows that he needs to lose 10 to 12% of his body fat for that photo shoot. Let's say 12%. For him, that's going to equate to 12 kilos of fat tissue that he needs to lose. And as you lose weight, not all of that is going to be fat, but the majority of it is. So we know we need to lose 12 kilos. Your average rate of fat loss is going to be about half a kilo to a kilo a week. So already we're looking at a minimum of 12 weeks to lose 12 kilos. But in order to do that, they'd have to be a very aggressive, very restricted 12 weeks, which might not be the approach you want to take. And I would always err on the side of caution. So you're probably realistically going to be looking at anywhere from 12 to 24 weeks. And then I always say, however long you think you need, add 4 more weeks on. The only downside is you get too lean. Like, that's it. There is no negative to it, because you can just control your food and come in even leaner and a little bit fuller. So however long you think you need, add 4 weeks. So then for this guy, we're looking at a minimum of 16 weeks to 28 weeks. So we'd probably say, right, let's look at 20 weeks. 20 weeks is going to give us more than enough time to lose that 12 kilos, to do it in, yes, a restricted way. Yes, it has to be on point, but it doesn't have to be absolutely killing yourself from day one. So 20 weeks is going to be a really, really nice amount of time coming to the shoot in the exact body shape that you want to be. So trust me, like I said, you're always going to need a little bit longer than you think. So once you've got that time frame nailed and you can figure out exactly how long you need, and you can probably do that before you choose a date. So go through that process, look at where you're at. Then when you know how long you need, then you can pick an exact date based off of what you've got going on around that time and based off what you've got coming up in a year. So now that you've got your date picked, now that you've got your photographer picked, now that you've got your location sorted, you've got everything that you need mapped out. Now you need to figure out how you're going to do this, right? What are you going to do with your calories? What are you going to do with your training? What are you going to do with your steps, your cardio, to get you to where you want to be? So when it comes to your calories, there are loads of ways that you can figure out how many calories you should be eating. What I would recommend doing if you're currently not doing anything is just spending the first week tracking what you're currently doing, tracking your calories, tracking your protein, your carbs, your fats, tracking your water intake, your daily steps, the amount of times you train, how much cardio you do. Track all of that, have a look at the difference in your weight across that week, the difference in your physique, and then you can sort of get a good idea of whereabouts your maintenance is. If you don't lose any weight across that week, if it stays around the same point, you're probably around maintenance, and then that is your start point to work out a deficit from. If you lose a little bit of weight across that week, then you know you're in a little bit of a deficit, and then it's just a case of making it a little bit more aggressive if you need to lose a little bit more weight, or maintaining it where it's at. And if you're gaining weight that week, well then you know you're in a surplus and you know that things need to drop quite quickly. The other method is using a calculator. Now I'm going to drop a link below the video into my online free calorie and macro calculator, so you can put in your details. It's going to give you back some maintenance calories, it's going to give you back protein targets, carb targets, fat targets. It's going to give you back everything that you can need to get started. So you could always use this as a start point, run those numbers for a week, see what changes you notice, and then make some adjustments based off of that. But once you've got your maintenance calories figured out after that first week, you then want to make sure you're dropping into a deficit. Now again, you want to be relatively aggressive with this. So I always recommend going somewhere from 20 to 30% in a reduction in calories from your maintenance. So if you're on 2,000 calories a day at your maintenance and that means eating 2,000 calories a day, you maintain the same weight, you're probably going to want to look to drop 400 to 600 calories a day. And it's quite a big drop, but the bigger the drop you have at the beginning, the faster the progress you're going to see to start out with. And that's going to be happening when you've got the most motivation, when you've got the most energy. It's the best time to do it because you can deal with it the best. So make that bigger drop to begin with. It's always better to come in leaner quicker and add food back in than get into the day and not being as lean as you want to be. So 20 to 30% of a deficit from where you start for your calories. Protein wise, you want to be looking, especially when you're on the lower calories, at around 2.2 to 2.6 grams of protein per kilo per day. So again, for a 100 kilo individual, that might be anywhere from 220 to 260 grams of protein a day. The more protein you consume, the more full you're going to feel from your meals, the less hungry you're going to feel, the lower your cravings are potentially going to be, potentially the more calories you're going to burn from the thermic effect of food, but this is negligible, it's only small, you can't eat yourself thin, and the more muscle you're going to help maintain through that process. So there's only really positives to going higher with your protein, so don't be scared to push on the higher side. Once you've got your calories and your protein figured out, you don't necessarily need specific carbohydrate and fat targets if you don't feel comfortable with them. But what I would say is make sure you're having a minimum of 0.5 grams of fat per kilo of body weight. So again, for a 100 kilo individual, it would be a minimum of 50 grams of fat a day. Simple as that. So you'd have your calorie target, your protein target, your minimum fat amount, and then whatever's left, that could go towards your carbohydrates. And remember, with carbohydrates during a photo shoot prep, they are really, really useful for, again, helping improve satiety, reduce hunger, reduce cravings, help you feel a bit fuller, look a bit fuller in your muscles, improve training performance, improve recovery. So you do want to be making sure that whatever carbs you are having, they're quite voluminous carbs, which means, you get a lot back for the amount of carbs. So you don't want to be having loads of sort of sugary things or anything that's going to be a very small portion and isn't going to fill you up. You want to be looking more towards oats, more towards potatoes, towards rice cakes, that mean you're going to get more volume of food for the amount of carbs that you have. And then the last couple of points on nutrition are your fiber intake and your water. When it comes to fiber, you don't need a specific fiber target, but what I do generally say to clients is bulk out your meals with veg. Have a couple of different handfuls of different coloured vegetables with each meal, because again, it's going to help bulk out your meals, it's going to help you feel full, reduce your hunger, reduce the chance of craving, make the whole diet feel much easier, and it means you're going to be getting in those nutrients that you need from your foods. And when it comes to water, you want to make sure you're having about 1 litre per 25 kilos of body weight, and potentially an extra half a litre to a litre on a gym day as well, on a day that you're training in the gym, just to make sure you're staying fully hydrated and you're not holding any unwanted water weight. So that is how I would structure your nutrition to start with your photo shoot prep. And I would just keep that consistent day to day. Yes, you could have some slight variance on a training day or a non-training day. You could have some high days or low days. You could go lower through the weekdays and you could have slightly more calories on a weekend. You can split that up whatever way is going to work best for you, whatever way that you feel you're going to be able to stick to for the longest. It doesn't really matter as long as you stay within that overall 20 to 30% deficit, right? So that might mean 30% through the week, 20% on the weekend. It might mean 30% on rest days, 20% on training days. Stuff like that. Figure out what way works for you. Once you've got all that mapped out, then you want to look towards your activity and how much you're moving. You're going to have to move. If you want to get lean, you're going to have to do your steps. You're going to have to do cardio. You're just going to have to do it. There's no way around it. When it comes to steps, that should be the priority in terms of movement. Make sure that you're moving, at least I would say as a good marker is 10,000 steps a day. There's nothing magic about that. If you're currently on 4,000 steps a day, it's unlikely you're going to be able to bump straight up to 10,000 steps a day. So maybe just slowly build this up over the weeks by 1 to 2,000 a day across the week. So you might go 4,000 a day for the first week, 6,000 a day for the second week, 8,000 a day for the next week, and slowly bump those up whilst you're improving your habits. Get up and go out for some walks. Take the stairs instead of a lift, park further away from the shops, walk around the room or around the office whilst replying to messages, emails, making phone calls, that kind of thing to really easily bump your steps up. Then we want to look at your training. You don't need to be in the gym every single day. Contrary to what you might think with the guys that you see on Instagram and social media, you don't need to train every single day to look like that. We actually only build muscle and improve when we're recovering. So 3 to 4 days a week in the gym is going to be more than enough, but make sure that you're hitting each muscle group 2 to 3 times a week. So if you're going 3 times a week, it's going to be 3 full body workouts, or maybe an upper lower upper if you wanted to target upper body a little bit more. 4 times a week you might want to do an upper lower, you might do a push pull legs full body, whatever split you enjoy, but 3 to 4 times a week is more than enough. Just make sure you're training with intensity and those sessions are difficult. And then cardio is the very last thing that we look at. It's like the last tool that we add on top to increase expenditure. There's no real target I can give you here for what you should be aiming to do, but just know that you can add cardio in as an extra to help increase your calorie expenditure through the week. And I would slowly build this up, and I would avoid HIIT training, because HIIT training is very, very demanding, it's very, very fatiguing, and it's going to more than likely leave you hungrier, more likely to have cravings, more likely to want to snack, and it's going to reduce your recovery capabilities and potentially take away from your performance in the gym. So I would 100% just stick to steady state, consistent cardio, whether it's on a Stairmaster or on a bike, on a treadmill, whatever it is. I can't give you specific recommendations in terms of how much you should be doing, but always start at the lower end. And as you want to make things harder and as you need to continue to see fat loss progress, ramp things up a little bit. Now that we've got everything mapped out, you've got your timeline mapped out, you know where you're doing it, you know the photographer, you've got your nutrition all mapped out and how you're going to approach it. The final few things to mention are the expectations for this process. When we talk about expectations, we need to be realistic with this. Doing a photo shoot isn't a process that you just turn up one day, put your effort in, forget about it the next day. It's not something you just pick up and drop off whenever you fancy it. It has to be at the forefront of what you do for the entire prep. It's got to be a priority, and that does mean there has to be sacrifice. You're going to have to say no to things. You're going to have to go to social occasions and not drink and not have meals out. That is going to have to happen if you want to get that result that you want to turn up on the day having. Because at the end of the day, you're going to be stood in front of a camera without your top on. You're going to be stood there wanting to look your best. And if you turn up on that day knowing that you've not done everything that you could have done, you're going to regret it. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to miss absolutely everything for the duration of time. Like, there are ways of working things in and adjusting your calories and being a little bit more lenient, but the majority of the time, you're going to have to miss out on those things. You're going to have to turn up to the parties, have a water, have a Diet Coke, have a lime and soda, whatever it is, that is going to be the case. If you're living with your partner, you're going to have to explain to them why you want to do this process, what it means to you, what you're going to get out of it. You're going to have to get them on side, because if your partner isn't on board with it, it's going to make life very, very difficult. So explain to them what's expected, explain to them what you're going to have to sacrifice, how long you're going to be doing it for, and why it's important to you, and try to get them on side, and hopefully they'll be as supportive as you need them to be. But ultimately, you're in it for the long haul. Like we've said, this isn't a quick fix blitz diet process. This is a long process that is potentially might only be something you ever do once. So get comfortable with that. Be prepared to sacrifice things. Be prepared to be a little bit selfish, because you're going to have to be if you want to get that result. And be prepared to make it a priority above everything else. You have to make sure you know where your meals are coming from. You have to make sure you know when you're training, what time you go into the gym. These things have to be nailed on and have to be in routine if you want to get the best possible result you can. So just a few expectations there of what you need to know going into the photo shoot process. And then ultimately, the big question is it worth it? I've already spoken about the benefits of doing a photo shoot, right? But what I wanted to touch on, and it's something I talk about all the time because it is my favorite moment when doing this process with clients, is the moment when they see that first picture. So you'll turn up on the day, you'll feel nervous, you'll feel potentially like you shouldn't be there. Those are all normal feelings. You might feel a little bit silly. You'll even be posing for that first photo, and you might still be having those doubts, feeling like, should I be here? Will I look the part? That's totally normal. I felt that on my first photo shoot. My clients have all felt that on their first photo shoot. But that moment where you take that first picture, the photographer tells you to walk around, he flips the camera around and shows you the photo of yourself that he's just taken. That moment, like the one that you can see here with Ryan, is life-changing, because in that moment you suddenly realise, I look good, like I should be here, and all that work you've been putting in suddenly makes sense, and you realise you look great. And in that moment, I've literally seen clients stand a little bit taller, their chest has come out, and they've just fallen into the rest of the photo shoot. They've settled into it, they felt comfortable, they felt confident, and it's completely changed their perspective of themselves. I've had clients saying that after photo shoots, they walk into the gym with a strut. They walk into the gym with a new sense of confidence, with a new sense of purpose. They wear clothes like vests that they would never have worn before, because they've got that confidence and appreciation in themselves. And that moment, genuinely, you cannot buy. That moment is it's genuinely something else. And it's why it is my favorite moment on the photo shoot days with clients. Now, my last bit of advice for all of this, if you want to do this process properly, if you want to get the most out of it, is to get a coach. And I'm not saying this because that is coincidentally what I do, but I'm saying this because invest in someone who has gone through this process, who knows what to expect, who knows how it works, who can help you organize the location, the timeline, the dates, who can map everything out for you. But not only that, can then go with you on the day. They can walk you through what to expect, what to wear on the day, how to prep your skin for the photo shoot, what kind of tan you should get for the shoot, what kind of poses you should do on the day, how to practice those poses leading up to that. There's all these little things that you need to consider and you want to be practicing and be aware of leading up to the photo shoot. And having a coach is just going to give you that confidence and that sort of level of comfort that you know you're hitting everything that you need to hit, you're not missing anything, and you're going to end up getting the absolute best results on the day. And also, you've got someone there who is going to give you that support and accountability to keep you on plan, but also give you that reassurance when you start to doubt the process, because trust me, you will start to doubt the process at some point. At some point during that photo shoot prep, you might start to doubt yourself, you might start to doubt your ability, you might start to question why you're doing it in the first place. And that is when you need someone there to give you that little nudge, to either put their arm around your shoulder and tell you that you're doing the right things, to give you that confidence, or to actually give you the kick up the bum to tell you that things are going in the right direction and that you should be there and you're doing all the right stuff and the progress is being made. However best you respond, it's always an absolute game changer to have someone there to help do that for you. So that was everything on how to get photo shoot lean. It was a long one. Hope you enjoyed it. Guys, as ever, as I said at the start, if you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It really, really helps me out. Like the video, share it across your socials or whatever, tell your mates, and I will see you in the next video.